What topic will you be enlightening us on this evening, Rabbi?
The exact title is even better. Hold on, I'm going to give you the exact title. It's about Torah and science. Okay, let me get back in. Okay. All right, resume share. All right, I'll get this as a large, get back to the beginning. Here we go. See the title? Torah and science are best of friends.
Yeah, you're obscuring part of it, Rabbi, but you
Okay.
told me, so I don't need to actually see it on the screen.
It was obscured by you see people's faces, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I can see that neat little mime, science, faith, and they're locked together like two pieces of a puzzle.
The synthesis runs a lot deeper than you think. Right.
Rabbi, everything runs a lot deeper than I think.
Every what?
Everything runs a lot deeper than I think.
Correct. That is true. I'm going to give it a moment or two. We had about 10 to 15 people sign up, but it always takes time for them to get in. But I don't want to get people in the habit of coming on late. So I'm going to start basically on time, maybe a minute or two from now.
So this won't be on Jewish time.
Yeah. Scientific time.
Gotcha. Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah.
And
The Big Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben.
And we are live on Chabad's page.
We're live on Chabad's page. That's exactly right.
So the fact that we're being live streamed, does that mean people will be able to access it later?
Karen, could you respond
Yes,
to that?
I believe so.
Oh,
Okay, good. All right. I don't know if we're always going to be able to do that. We're always going to do that. I'm not sure. It's up in the air. What I think I'd rather do is tape it and then put it on later. But here we are. Hi, Larissa. Good to see you. Hi, Steve. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to be back.
Good to see you too. Get the sound a little bit louder here. Here we go. Okay. I am going to begin. And I know there's a number of people still coming on, another 5 or 10 people, but we're going to start, okay? And here we are, a new year. Welcome. Welcome to a new year. And I say a new year, we've been saying a new year for a month already. You know, it's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and a good year and a Shana Tova. It's all true. The truth is, though, that the other truth is that the year really starts after the holidays, because now it's back to the regular. And as a matter of fact, tonight is Rosh Chodesh. It's the first day of the new month, of the second month of the year, Cheshvan, Mar Cheshvan. So, and we're up to the second portion of the Torah. Last week was Bereshis at the beginning. And we're up to the portion of the Red Sox won last night. So there's a lot of good things going on in the beginning, you know, that famous thing. So, but let's talk about tonight's parsha. Tonight, we're going to talk about Noah, something in the portion of Noah, and it's about Torah and science. And so I'm going to read the title again, The Best of Friends, Torah and Science. The synthesis runs a lot deeper than you think. Just do it right. So I'd like to give a little bit of an intro to this. I think it's a fascinating that we're going to go through here. And let's begin as follows. I'd like you to take for a moment, use your imagination, and picture the scene. The scene is as follows. A large yeshiva in New York, in Brooklyn, and there's hundreds of students. You know how you study in pairs and chavrusa, and one young scholar is reading a text of the Talmud, and his colleague replies with a question, and he gets stumped, and it's a good question. They're not sure how to really understand the piece that they're going through, because the question is a good question. Some guy sitting next to them, I guess he's got his glasses like this, and he thinks, and he strokes his beard, and he says, I have an answer to that question. And he answers the question. And so this third person answers the question, and they all sit there and say, you know what? You're absolutely right. He solved the problem that they were studying, that they were engaged in a study. And we start to think about that scholarship, Torah scholarship. It's been going on for thousands of years, the rigorous study back and forth, questions and answers. And now these couple of people in this yeshiva have taken a step further and continued some of the discussions of the greatest sages of history. Now, that's one scene. Now we take another scene. A couple of miles down the road, you have another group of students, but it's a very different type of academic exercise. There's a university professor, and he has this beautiful PowerPoint, and he's teaching the finer points of quantum physics. And he's got an amazing array of slides, and there's 150 students there. They're spellbound, they're listening to his enthusiasm. They're convinced that the only thing they're going to do in their world, they're going to be able to change humanity forever based on the class that they're going through. Beautiful, scientific, incredible, magnificent scholarship and study. Two types of scholarship. Both students, both groups, they're very passionate about what they're studying. And they're taking subtle concepts, and it really takes years of training to fully appreciate the concepts. You can't just walk into quantum physics. The same thing with some of the Talmud. You really have to have years of study before you can appreciate some of the subtle concepts that are there. So it looks like these are two different worlds. This is the world of academia. This is the world of Torah study, but they don't cross one to another. So today we're going to explore the interplay between these two worlds. And we want to address a particular question. This is a Torah class. So the question that we're going to want to address is from a Jewish point of view, from a Torah point of view. Let's say you have a young religious Jewish person. He may have a beard, he may have a payas. What's he supposed to make of modern academia? He's studying about God transcends the world, he transcends nature, there's a higher divine reality. What should he make of modern academia? Is it something to admire? Should he take it after he finishes rabbinical school? Should he go there afterwards? Or should he ignore it? Maybe it's a spiritual risk for him. Should he not go near it? It's a distraction from his being devoted to Torah. Or maybe, as a lot of people think, Orthodox Judaism, or they call it ultra-Orthodox Judaism, as we know, is anti-science. Could it be anti-science? What should this young man who's studying Yeshiva make of this unbelievable world of academia? Let's look at the question on the screen, and let's look right here. Move this over here. So the question that we're going to be focusing on is, what is a religious Jew supposed to make of modern scientific academia? Should he strive for it? Should he ignore it? Should he oppose it? That's what we're going to go back to. That's what we're going to get into. So in order to get there, let's look at one episode in this week's Torah portion. Most of us are familiar with this week's Torah portion about Noah and the flood, and the people were terrible, and God brought the flood on the world, and they survived. At the end of the Torah portion, there's another piece, which is a smaller part of today's Torah portion. We've heard it in this story too. And it's about the Tower of Babel. I say Babel, there's Bavel. In Hebrew, they call it Bavel. But we call it Tower of Babel, if you look in Wikipedia. And what does that story tell us? This story took place, fascinating story, it took place, and through this story, we'll try to understand the question about how Torah and science are joined or should be joined, or can they join? So this story takes place after the flood, is when the Tower of Babel takes place. So it's about 1,600 years since the creation of the world. Since Adam and Eve were created, all of humanity, until the time of the flood, but all of humanity had lived in one region. They had one community, and they had one language. As the population began to grow after the flood and regrew again, the world started to populate a lot more. So the Torah tells us that they decided to find a new place to live that would accommodate their needs. They traveled east, says the Torah, and they settled in a valley called Shinar. I'll just tell you now where Shinar is. Shinar is somewhere in the middle of Iraq. It's Babel, it's Babylon, and that's where they settled. Let's look at the Torah and examine the story a bit so we can get back and really get into the very interesting issue that we have about Torah and science and scholarship and all that. So here's what the Torah says about the Tower of Babel. Looking, see it? You got it? The Chumash, these are the words of the Torah itself. And they said to one another, they had traveled east, and they found this valley, and the population of the world said, and they all speak one language, remember, one community. And now they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. Let's make good bricks. So the bricks were to them for stones instead of stones, and the clay was to them for mortar. And now they had good building materials. Now the Torah says, they said, what should we do with these good building materials? Let us build ourselves a city and a tower. And the top of the tower, its tops are going to be in the heavens. Way, way, way up. What else did they say? Let's make a name for ourselves. Let's make ourselves a name. And the reason we're going to do this, lest we be scattered upon the entire face of the earth. That's what they said. So let's look at these words for a second and try to extract some ideas what's going on. Number one, humanity began to progress. People figured out, number one, they don't anymore have to build things just with wood and stone. They could build with bricks. They could fire the bricks. They could use the clay as mortar. And so they greatly expanded their construction capabilities. Things changed. They knew they could now spread out to new settlements. It would be easier. And they were looking for, let us make a name for ourselves. They're looking for, we're going to endure the human race. We want a better humanity. And the human race is now going to have endurance. That's basically what they were saying. Modern technology and human endurance and better for humanity. What does the Torah say happened? What does the Torah say happened? You guys know the story, right? What happened? Did God like it? God said, no, he doesn't like it. So instead, he decided, instead of this great monument that's going to show their impressive, thing, that people would learn that they're not so really impressive at all. What did God do? Let's look at the next few words of the Torah. Fascinating story. God spoke to the angels. God said, come, let us descend. Let's confuse their language so that one will not understand the language of his companion. And I'll explain that in a second. Let's finish what it says. And God scattered them there from there upon the face of the entire earth, and they stopped building the city. No more city. They're all scattered. They speak different languages. Well, so how did God change the languages? Whether he did it in one shot immediately, like a miracle thing, or he set up certain social constructs that made them develop different languages. But 70 nations began to develop, and they scattered upon the face of the earth. That's basically what God caused to happen. He wasn't happy with their plan. So he caused it to come down. So the question comes up, what really was wrong with the Tower of Babel? Why was it such a bad thing? A couple of people got together and they wanted to advance technology, right? They wanted to have what we call socio-economic progress. Sounds great. What could be, what's so terrible about that? They were given God-given qualities to do something, to do human things, right? To use their human capabilities. What's wrong with that? So the Torah puts it in a very negative light, what they wanted to do. And the Torah says that we're not going to down. God says he doesn't like it. So it appears from here, it could appear from here, that the Torah is anti-science. They really were advancing. They were demonstrating technological abilities. Why put a stop to it? Can you imagine any life without doing that? Should we live like in Pennsylvania, like what's the name of the group that lives there? Okay. So can you imagine life without running water?
Quakers.
Huh?
Amish, not Quakers, Amish.
Amish. Yeah. So can you imagine without electricity, without life-saving medicine, would the Torah really insist on knocking down human advancement? What was wrong? What was wrong with what they did? Okay. So now what we're going to do is, there's another verse in this week's Torah portion. So we're jumping from step to step. We're going to bring it all together about a very, very interesting verse, and we're going to look at what the Zohar says. The Zohar was written, as you know, about 2,000 years ago. It was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, the one we celebrate on Lag BaOmer. It's the deeper part of the Torah, the inside story of the Torah, the soul of the Torah. Kabbalah, it's the basis of so much Kabbalah. And it's not a book that makes predictions all the time. That's not what it is. It tells you the deeper meaning of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, of the Jewish people, of God, of souls. And it shows all the verses in the Torah, deeper meaning, what it means. But every once in a while, there's a prediction, not every once in a while. Here we see that the Zohar predicted something in the future and gave the year, that something's going to happen. They didn't want you to think that Zohar is a whole book of predictions, but it's a verse on this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, speaking about the flood, says that in the 600th year of Noah's life, the waters came from above. The heavens, the windows of the heaven burst open, and the waters came from below, from beneath the earth, and it flooded the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life. Let's look at that Zohar, and you'll see something very interesting. What was written by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai 2,000 years ago. Here's where we go. In the 600th year, what the Zohar says, quote, of the 6th millennium, for those that, it's not the confusing, millennium is 1,000 years. Well, not to confuse million. Millennium means 1,000 years. We are now in 5,782. So during the 6th millennium, that actually means during our millennium, because when you hit 1,000 years, you finished 1,000 years. 1,001 is in the 2nd millennium. So 2001, so once you pass 5,000, you're already in the 6th millennium. So we are now in the 6th millennium, okay? So in the 600th year of the 6th millennium, what year is that? Let's get our math experts out here. That would be 5,600, correct? All right, so we're now 5,782. Not too long ago. So in the 600th year of the 6th millennium, says the Zohar, the supernal gates of wisdom will be open. Wisdom of the heavens, spiritual wisdoms are going to be open. And also the well springs of below, the wisdom below. The water is referred to in Zohar as wisdom. Wisdom from above, wisdom below is going to open up. And this will prepare the world for the 7th millennium, but when we reach the year 6,000. And the Zohar continues. It's like a person who prepares himself on Friday for Shabbat as the sun begins to go down. So it will be here. This is alluded to in the verse, in the 600th year of Noah's life, all the fountains of the great deep were broken and the windows of heaven were opened up. So now we're talking about the year 5,600. What is that in English? In English, that's the year around the year 1840. So it says in the year around the year 1840, the wisdoms of the world are going to open and the wisdom of the Torah is going to open. What does this refer to? So it's understood that the wisdoms of divine wisdom, wisdom of divine wisdom, is the opening up of Kabbalah and Hasidus. Those wisdoms were always there, but only for a very finite, small group. And around this time, wisdoms of the Torah exploded. Hasidism went all over Eastern Europe, by the Sephardim as well. Kabbalah became part of the study of the masses. That's the godly wisdom, wisdom from above. So it's understood that that's what that means. And what is the wisdoms from below referred to? So that's understood as a reference to the Industrial Revolution and all the technical advances that blew up after that, and all the advances we have now, the locomotive and the telephone and the radio and till today. And so we can match it up with this period of time. Here the Rebbe explains it in his Sikha. Look at the Rebbe's quoting the Zohar. Evidently, the Zohar is referring to the fact that the gates of wisdom in general and the gates of Torah's wisdom specifically would open at that time. That did actually occur with regard to worldly wisdom. If we look at the year 1840, we look around that time, as we find an incredible amount of stuff. I just looked it up on Wikipedia just to check this out. And they said, because I read the Sikha years ago, I said, when was the Industrial Revolution? And they wrote from 1760 to 1840. 1840 was the climax of the Industrial Revolution. Very interesting. I just looked it up myself. Other people give other dates. It's certainly right around that time. So you can figure the average person living in the early 1700s compared to a person living 2,000 years before that, there were advances, but nothing at all like the advances from the Industrial Revolution and onward till today's times. Unbelievable exponential growth, an explosion. It changed farming, communication, construction, textiles, medicine, incredible wisdoms that the world never knew before. And look at that the Zohar said that and gave a year 2,000 years ago, 1,800 years before it basically happened. So it's a very, very interesting thing. Now let's talk about the wisdom from above a little bit. Because remember, we started this class by saying there's two wisdoms. There's academia, and there's the wisdoms of Torah. And they're sitting in yeshiva here, they're sitting in a college university over there, and how do the two ever meet? And here the Zohar puts them together on this week's parsha. So let's talk about the wisdoms of Kabbalah. So with the advent of the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, and especially the Alter Rebbe, when he broke open the Tanya and look at the Torah, so this, I mean, it was a big explosion. The question is, why does the Zohar link these two things? And I have a bigger question to ask. Not only does the Zohar say there'll be wisdoms here and wisdoms there, but he says that those two wisdoms will be a prelude to what? To Shabbat, which means the coming of Mashiach. So if we look at our millennia, we are right now, one day per 1,000 years, we're on Friday afternoon. We're in 5782. Friday, we're just getting ready for Shabbat. And these wisdoms are coming to the world just to get us ready for Shabbat. And you can accept Shabbat early. You don't have to wait till the 6,000. Okay. So the question really is, oh, yes, I should have showed this before. I mean, this is just, we all know this stuff, but it's just amazing to see it every time. All this type of stuff started to develop and climaxed in about 1840. Explosion. And then comes the Alter Rebbe. In about 1837, he printed the Torah. That was on every parsha for the average person. And look what the Torah was printed in 1848. These are the wisdoms that exploded into the world. Upper wisdoms and lower wisdoms. So the question we're going to focus on now is, what is the connection? How is the advance above aligned with the advance below? What do those two wisdoms have to do with each other? One is a worldly wisdom, one is a godly wisdom. And the Zohar connects them, puts them together. That's the second question we have. Okay. Very interesting. This is from Norman Lamb, a quote. And before we determine, I'll go back a second, before we determine whether the Torah is anti-science or not, we have to understand what that means. You know, the world, when it talks about religion, really puts religion together in one box, all religion. Mostly understood when they say religion, it's in Christian terms. And it could be that's a reason why there are many, you know, there's a popular notion that if you're fervently religious, you are adverse to science. So unlike Judaism, there's different ways to explain this, but we'll focus on this. Christianity doesn't center on a list of actual commandments. It's more on belief. If you believe in the right thing, you're saved. If you believe in the wrong thing, you're damned. And Judaism says, yes, but you have to believe in practice. You have to do practice. You have to do mitzvot. There's actual things you have to do within the world. You have to take objects of the world and work with them and use them and use them right and use them in this dimension and use them in this fashion. And that's so practice deals with the reality. So the Jewish people automatically can't reject science because they have to deal with the world. The 613 commandments that they must be involved in the world. So we're going to see that Judaism is, of course, it's pro-logic and pro-science and inquisitive, and let's look at, here's a quote from Norman Lamb. It's very interesting. That he says, "What has Athens?" Tertullian said, not his quote. And he said, "What has Athens to do with Jerusalem? What agreement is there between the academy and the church? For this Latin church father, the gulf between them was unbridgeable." And basically, they, from many religious people, they were very adverse to science. But such anti-rationalism never found a warm and hospitable reception amongst classical Jewish thinkers. But if you look at the Jewish world, you look at the rabbis, look at Maimonides, Shmuel HaNagid, the Ibn Ezra, the Barbanel, the Vilna Gaon, the Alter Rebbe, they were all involved with scientific knowledge. Rabbi Soloveitchik, I mean, they were all involved in scientific knowledge throughout. The greatest leaders were involved with that. So we see for sure as a fact that Jewish people not only don't reject science, they can't reject science. It's part of what they believe in. But let's take this a step further. Take it a step further. It's not just that the Torah is okay with science in some kind of ambivalent way. Listen to this. The Torah, science and inventions wouldn't be possible without the way the Torah believes, without the Jewish belief. What do I mean by that? If you look back at a lot of pagan, their beliefs in the world, pagan beliefs basically were that the world is unpredictable. In other words, there's different gods that cause different forces, and they fight, and they can have feuds with each other. So you can't predict what the world is going to be like. Judaism, on the other hand, says, of course, that there's a single creator. If there's a single creator, that automatically means there's a singular theory and there's a foundation for everything. Let's look at what Rabbi Sachs writes. In other words, science has to be based on there's a thread that goes through the whole world. It's a unified theory. Judaism believes, of course, there's one creator. Let's look at Rabbi Sachs. He says it well. He says the account of creation, the first chapter of Genesis, is stunningly original, quite unlike any other in antiquity. There are no contending forces, no battles of the gods, no capricious spirits. God speaks and the universe comes into being. God is not in nature, but he's above nature, transcending it and ordering it according to his word. In other words, let me stop for a second. God put certain rules of nature in the world. And unless he breaks that by a miracle, the world runs according to that nature that he controls. that he sets up. Let's continue. Nature has no will or set of wills of its own. So this idea is an immense intellectual leap. If God created the world, then in principle, it is intelligible because it has everything fits. There's one creator who made one, the myths of irrationality have been dispelled. That's the place where now science can come in and say, yeah, we believe that too. If you look at modern science, especially, so if you look at you if you didn't believe that there was one design that mathematically exists one with another, then you couldn't reconcile. You couldn't look to reconcile anything. Maybe this one's in control, maybe that one's in control. So science believes it has the same premise, especially nowadays, that there's a unified premise for everything in existence. People used to look at the world like disparate different things going on, and they couldn't see the connection one with the other. They didn't necessarily imagine there was a connection one with the other. Now we look at the world and we see things that are separate and they look opposite. We understand they might be a balance one to the other. So a lot of people made the mistake now that they use science to replace intelligent design. I'm going to call this intelligent design, although that may mean different things, different people. Intelligent design means there's a God who intelligently created the world, and there's a system that, and there are rules of nature that make it one world. So a lot of people, the mistake they made was they, instead of using that as a basis and understanding that's a basis for science, they would replace the notion of intelligent design with science. Oh, it's nature. Instead of looking, but science is really an excellent place to find out God. When a person realizes, for example, take the human body. The human body has 100 trillion cells. And each cell, each one contains 2 complete sets of the human genome. There's 3 billion bits of information each way. So when we learn science and we see it's incredible how all that fits together. And we understand that gives us an appreciation for an all-knowing, intelligent divine, for a great designer that put it together. It's just so those are the things. Now, so that doesn't mean that when somebody understands that, they automatically, you have to think about that. You have to put that into context to understand that. So the premise of both these things, any questions on this so far? Any comments? We got questions. Anybody have a comment they want to share on this idea? Yes, Don.
Yeah, Rabbi, talking about the interface of Torah and science. Didn't the Rebbe have a degree in physics?
He did. He did. Yes, he did. And we're going to quote something from the Rebbe that was interesting later. And I know he's mentioned this about the premise of science, that how it's one theory. He did. At the same time, let me put this in. At the same time, even though Judaism believes strongly in understanding this, that doesn't mean that Judaism, that Torah wants every Jewish boy to become a scientist or every Yeshiva student to go there. And that's what I want to get to. I want to get that balance because there are concerns we're going to get to later in the class. But the point is, the premise is true, that under certain conditions, secular studies are worthy, but there's also the opposite as well. And the opposite not because of the science itself, because as we'll get to later on, what it's used for, and science has to be understood in the context of it's a creation of the world. And it has to be understood in the life of a Jew. How does it fit in? In general, how does the human mind fit in? The human intellect is a tool, not to tell it all. It's not the all of everything. Intellect and logic are tools, are gifts that were given by God to use. to use in the right context in connecting with God. Let's get to that later on. But first, I want to quote a couple of things. Actually, the Rebbe responded to somebody. We're going to go to this now about. It really wasn't made for what we're talking about now, but it was a response to somebody who had this question. How does science fit in how does Torah view scientific study? Should I go and study scientific things? So the Rebbe first explained in a number of examples where we see how the Torah regards wisdom of science. And then we go back to practically what does that mean for everybody else? Okay? So here's a letter of the Rebbe. It's a little bit small here, so I'll try to explain it outside actually. And number one, he gives 5 points, 5 quick points. One is, first of all, there's science itself within Torah. And there's an interesting, this is actually a very interesting quote here. First of all, there may be things in Torah itself that discuss scientific ideas. Let me read this, though. You see in the middle of the paragraph, there was a certain sage that described in the Talmud through his Torah study, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, who was a genius, was able to determine the duration of a snake's pregnancy by studying the Torah. Likewise, it states in the Medrash, Shmuel and Rabbi Hoshea were able to learn all about astronomy through their Torah study. So, okay, so let's say not everybody can figure out the duration of the snake's pregnancy by studying Torah, but he was able to do that. I know somebody once was in audience with the Rebbe, and they said, the Rebbe, it says that everything's in the Torah, all the wisdom's in the Torah. Where are atoms in the Torah? The Rebbe opened up a book and showed him. It's one of the earlier Rishonim. He described it in different words and didn't use this, but he actually showed him where it says openly over there. I can find it, I'll look to find it. So there are things that they're in the Torah itself. We should read the beginning of this quote. Science can be understood from within Torah study. An intelligent person can understand everything about a building by looking at a blueprint, and the Torah is a blueprint of the world. So it's in there. That's one. Then there comes that when the Torah actually requires us to learn secular studies. For example, a very common one, a very understood one is there's a mitzvah in the Torah to calculate the Jewish months, and we have to adjust it according to the solar cycle. So it's a tremendous, deep knowledge. The solar cycle, the lunar cycle, in order to calculate the dates of the holidays and the dates of the new months. Here, look at this one. I want to show you over here. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, in the name of Kapara, Par Kapara, anyone who knows how to calculate astronomical seasons and the movement of constellations and did not do so, the verse says about him, they did not take notice of the work of God, and they don't see his handiwork. It's part of God's handiwork, but it's also something we have to practically know. There's a verse in the Torah at the end of this paragraph that will tell us, you shall guard and perform all the mitzvahs. And here it says, at the end, which wisdom and understanding is there in the Torah that in the eyes of the nations? This is the calculation of astronomical seasons, the movement of constellations. It's a mitzvah to know it. We study it in Maimonides every year when we study the 1,000 chapters of Maimonides, and it's one of the most difficult sections to get through. But interesting is not only that, is that the Talmud and Maimonides and Torah also quotes the secular wisdoms as well sometimes. Let's look at this. Here's what quote in Maimonides. This is the one of the difficult chapters. He writes like this. Look at what he writes. There's a difference of opinion amongst the sages of Israel concerning the length of a solar year. Some sages of the opinion, Shmuel, maintain it's 365 days and 1/4 day. Others, the opinion of Rav Ada, maintain a slightly less than that figure. And then he says there's also a difference of opinion among the wise men of Greece and Persia concerning this matter. That's Maimonides writes. Very, very interesting that it's part of a halachic understanding to understand the different existing sciences that exist like that. So then we can go even further. Very interesting. At the same time, we understand that Torah study is divine wisdom. So wisdom is wisdom, but it's not the same. There's godly wisdom, Torah wisdom, and then there's preparatory wisdom in order to understand the Torah. So just like in order to get schach for our sukkah, right, you need tools. So you go to a tree and you go to Home Depot and you buy a good tree cutter and you cut off good branches. And now you use that tool. So does the tree cutter become a mitzvah in itself? It's called hechsher mitzvah, preparation for mitzvah. The mitzvah is the schach. In the very same way, wisdoms of the world are created by God and they're meant to be used. Especially when are they meant to be used? When they're meant to be used for calculations of astronomy or something like that. But once you study the Torah itself and you get to divine wisdom, so then you have where do you see the practical difference between the godly wisdom and wisdom of the world? How does it express itself? One of the ways it expresses itself, Allah says it's forbidden to even think of words of the Torah in the bathroom or the shower or other unclean place, a place where extra urine might be present. Because of godly wisdom. What should you think about while you're there? So the Magen Avram writes, on his glosses, therefore, when Torah study is forbidden, one should make his business calculations so as to keep the mind occupied and avoid inappropriate thoughts. So the halacha says when you use there's another context. What about Shabbat? You can't think about business on Shabbat in the bathroom. You think about building, artwork, such other matters that are allowed on Shabbat. So what the point of all of this is to show there's a distinction in wisdoms itself. There's a godly wisdom, there's another wisdom, it's creation of God, and when does it have its real elevation? When does it have its real main purpose? When you use it in the service of God. So there's a context to it that we're talking about, but that's not, of course, the only where it goes to. Where else it goes to is very interesting comment over here. One of the great sages in the Talmud was Rav. He was an extraordinary sage. One of the halachas that comes out is you had to bring offerings, sacrifices to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. The Torah says they're not allowed to have blemishes. What's a blemish? So there's a tradition coming down from Moses at Sinai. There's 90 different things that you're not allowed to offer to God something that has a blemish. What's a blemish? There's this kind of animal, there's that kind of animal. Some of the blemishes are temporary. Some of the blemishes are more permanent. So Rav knew the ideas, the halacha, but he didn't really know what it meant. So Rav said, I apprenticed with a shepherd for 18 months. He sat there and he learned this, exactly each animal, to be able to know which blemish is a permanent one and which is a temporary one. The laws he knew. He studied the laws, but he didn't know what they meant. And he was able to give decisive, clear understanding of what each thing meant in a practical way. The same thing is with anything else. When we know on Shabbat, I got to keep the water hot on Shabbat, an urn, right? So the halacha is you can heat the water before Shabbos and keep it on. It's not a problem. You can't cook it on Shabbos. I can't turn it on Shabbos. Can't put it on the stove on Shabbos, but I can keep it warm. But there's a lot of different issues, though. You ever see some of the urns have a little glass tube that tells you how high the water is, right? So some of them, the issue is that when you take the water out, a little bit of water is going back in from the tube into the big urn, into the big part. That water is cold, and you're putting cold water back into the urn. That you can't do on Shabbos. You can't put new water in, it's cooking the water. So there's a bunch of that's just one of them. So that's an easy one. I give you an easy example. There's a lot of technological things that there's this institute in Israel that studies modern technology with halacha. It's a special institute that goes through all the details. That's why you can go to Sears and buy an oven, and it has Sabbath mode on it. And Sabbath mode is a whole system, but you can't cook on Shabbos, but you can leave it in and maybe open the door. There's a whole bunch of things. I remember when when we first got married. So Chani's grandfather, he was a real rough. He never studied, technology or anything like that. And our question was on Yom Tov. You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, right? So you can raise the flame on Yom Tov. You can't ignite a new flame, but you can raise the flame. So the question was, what about an electric burner? Can we raise the electric burner on Yom Tov? We're cooking. It's only on medium low, and I need it on a little bit higher, medium high. Can I raise it? So what he did was he called in 2 electricians, and he sat down with them one after another, and he researched it. What did he find out? When you turn the electric burner from low to medium to high, you're not raising a flame. There's actually new electric coils in there. You're igniting a new coil each time you go. If you go from low to medium, it's not making the same coil warmer or hotter. It's turning on a new one that you can't do. So obviously a Jew has to, because of halacha, not only because he loves science, it's part of our world. The world is Hashem's creation. Hashem put us in this world to understand part of that creation. That's in a little sense. That's in a sense of a little gadget. But let's talk about a little bit more than that. And so let's look at the different things that I just mentioned. And here they are. The scientific study within Torah, the Torah will tell you certain things, or you can figure it out if you're a great sage. The scientific study mandated by Torah, which would be like astronomy, studying astronomy in order to figure out the calculations, to know the halacha. The scientific study, when Torah isn't an option, you're not allowed to study it because you're in a place that can't study it. The scientific study to understand Jewish law, like the shepherd. He became a shepherd and went through it. And then what we're going to get to now is scientific study to earn a livelihood. Whatever way you look at it, we're talking about a context, that the wisdom of the world is given in the right context. Why is that so important? That we understand, we look at any wisdom, could be farming and business and quantum physics. It's looked at as it needs to be in context, and that's what we're going to get to right now. Let's understand that a little bit. Okay, so further we have to make sure that wisdom that we are going to study, like you said, that Rebbe went to university in physics and engineering, but he wouldn't tell any yeshiva student to go to university. He would tell them not to go to university. On the other hand, I remember when we were yeshiva students, so there were, and I'll explain why he would do that. And there were yeshiva students on the holidays, the month of the holidays, some Torah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. So plane loads of yeshiva boys would come from Israel and especially France. There was a major tshuva movement in France at the time. And there must have been at least 100 guys that would come. And these guys were all in university at the time. And they took off a couple of weeks and they came and they were in university and they were becoming Bal Tshuva and they're in university at the same time. A lot of those guys wrote to the Rebbe and said, we want to study Torah. We want to get out of university. They wouldn't let him. Not one of them would he let. He said, you're in university. There's a reason for it. And you're studying it. Continue and strengthen your studies and make sure you do it right. A lot of people would tell them. The Bachram who weren't there, he told them not to. But the ones that did, he would encourage. And he would say, there's obviously a reason for this. So let's understand that balance. Because we talked about the two worlds. There's the yeshiva on one street, and there's academia on the other one. How do they join with each other? So we have already demonstrated that secular studies are necessary to observe mitzvahs, to learn Torah. But we also know at the same time, that the Torah is the ultimate godly, eternal wisdom. It is unchanged by time, by space, by city, by wherever you are. And so the first issue that we look to is we want that the divine wisdom shouldn't be tainted in any way. Judaism is about having a religion with God, with Hashem. It's about having the right relationship with other people too. Any relationship, by definition, any relationship, the person is not just affected by what the people do, but it's affected by the way people think and feel. Any relationship with anybody else, there's a lot more going on. And to maintain the integrity of the relationship with Hashem, a person has to be sure that it'll work properly. I mean, you take any relationship. Halacha says that a husband and wife have to have a deep relationship, and a man and another woman are not allowed to be secluded, alone, if there's no access to anybody else to be there unless they're married. So the question is, what's the big deal? Because the Torah, because everything about relationships we know has to have the context that makes it healthy. So because the ultimate purpose of a person in the world is to be a good person, a moral person, a godly person, a person that's good to people, that's good to the world. So that takes a lot of effort. So it's necessary that the wisdom developed by the person, the Torah wisdom, should be in a pure way, and it shouldn't be tainted. So let's understand this. I mean, if we think about the effects of college campuses. What is a college campus? You could say, well, you're going to study, let's say a person's going to study science. What science? Science is just observable facts. That's all it is. We all know that the environment that you can study observable facts in can affect a person in many, many different ways. Look at all the anti-Israel movements that are developing on campuses. Look at all there's so much influences that come there. So it's not just about the study itself, it's about the person. We have to look at the person and make sure that the sacred relationship between a Jew and God remains a sacred relationship between a Jew and God. If a person is already there, that means that they have they're already in that environment. That means they have to change that environment, not to run away from it and use the time. Otherwise, that time becomes a wasted piece of time while they were there. A mind is obviously the deepest part of a person, and somebody gave an example like this. I'm going to share this example. It's a wild analogy. Listen to this analogy. I found it interesting. It's a sci-fi analogy from the future. Okay, so let's say it's the year 2000, 100 years from now, 2121, and now they can put computer chips into your brain for good reasons. The chips improve your physical and mental health, quality of life, and it helps you think healthy and be better and more better mood, and it's good. And the army is concerned about an enemy country that's going to go into those chips. This is sci-fi, right? One risk is that the enemy could program the soldiers to run in the wrong direction if there's ever a war and shoot at the wrong targets. Another more dangerous threat is, what if they hijack the brain altogether? They cause the soldiers not to accept who they are and not to accept why they're doing the right thing. Hijacking the brain. Okay, it's a sci-fi wild thing. But a human being, the Rambam says, is so easily affected by the environment that you're in. A human being is a medini, he says. So supposing you're in an environment that has deep intellectual engagement, that's when a human being really gets affected. And it's a profound change within a person. And if while you're acquiring that wisdom, you're also acquiring attitudes, perceptions, and moral choices, and people will taint that wisdom, as we said before, and say that the idea of science is anti-God. It's not about Torah is not anti-science, but science sometimes, the people who are developing science, even though it's not so, will be that there's no intelligent design. It's about science. They'll pit this idea that we mentioned one against the other. When those ideas develop within a person, they become the foundation of a person, then the choices that they make follow afterwards. So let's say now there's somebody who plays video games, and you play 10 hours of video games. Terrible thing. We know it's all true. Happens almost every day. So that's a waste of time. But it's only a stupid video game. It didn't really affect the mind so much. It was a waste of time because they should have been doing something better. Now contrast that. Let's say there's a professor in a university, and this guy is spouting vile ideas, harmful stuff. And in an environment, people can be affected by that. Are we afraid of that if we come contact? No. But do you put yourself in that environment so they can run very deep? Because the ideas at the same time, if they're tainted with a certain premise that goes contrary to your relationship with God and the Torah, could be not a healthy thing. So the Alter Rebbe writes a very interesting thing in the Tanya. Now we can understand what he writes. He writes about there's two types of contamination. One is emotions, and one is intellectual contamination. That's much worse, he says, than anything. Let's look at what he writes. And I really meant to have people talk a little bit and discuss this a little bit, but there's a lot to say, so we'll do that in a moment. But I want you to look at the Tanya. The Tanya says intellectual contamination is greater than the contamination of idle speech. For idle speech, that's why people talk about nonsense. That impacts their emotions. It doesn't, however, contaminate the highest part, the deepest part of a person, the intellectual faculties of a person's soul. It's just words of foolishness and ignorance. It doesn't hurt so much. They're not intellectual matters. The intellect remains uninvolved and untainted. Not so in the case of various secular studies, if they're done wrong. And therefore, by that, a person impacts and contaminates his divine soul's intellectual faculties. The exception is one who employs these secular disciplines of the opposite way, as a useful instrument, as a means of earning a more affluent livelihood, or another way to serve God, or how to apply them. And then he writes, that's the reason why Maimonides and Nachmanides and their peers engage specifically in such disciplines. They use them in ways that without them, they couldn't have reached such levels that they reached. So they took those tools and sanctified them. They took the tools of intellectual discipline and made it a positive thing. But the point that Alter Rebbe is making is you can't always know what kind of influence that is gonna happen for a person. Okay, so we covered this a little bit, and let's go back to the Tower of Babel. How's that? Before we go further, let's stop for a moment. Any comments somebody wants to make? Any questions?
Can we discuss the Noah's Ark for a second?
Can we discuss what? Say it again.
Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me in your comments that there really was science there to build the ark.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
if you look at that, and this
Yeah.
is a non-political statement. Okay, I'm not going to go through my politics,
Yeah.
but global warming in that age, could that have been, and what we're getting now? Some people think that what we're doing is will cause flooding and cause all kinds of catastrophes if we continue to ignore the science, or is this a repeat of the Noah's Ark age?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's crazy. I know. But
No.
Well, the Earth's climate has changed so many times over the course of millions of years. So why now is this suddenly the apocalypse?
Oh, you're off. You're Steve. Steve, your voice, your sound is you're muted. Here you go. You're muted, Steve. Steve, we can't hear
I
you.
don't.
You're off.
You know, Greenland is
Yeah.
ice, and Iceland is green, because 1,000 years ago, Greenland was green.
So what I'm
Iceland was
saying
ice.
is, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that
Yeah.
just because we're on this earth now, it doesn't mean we're any different than any other Jewish or human civilizations. We're subject to the same evolution of no matter what it is.
Correct.
We're not special. We're more sophisticated. We have better ways to do things, but we have better ways to destroy ourselves as well.
So what you're saying is correct. And I think that's where we're going with this, of course, and that is that there's a reason there's an explosion of wisdoms that should coincide with each other. It's not just that Torah can say science is the wisdom of the world are okay. It's that they both need to merge because and they can merge, and that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, that I agree. I agree.
And it needs it. You can't view it that way. And Noah is a good example. Let's go to the next question. Okay, next point. So there's an interesting comment, just by the way. It's just very interesting by Rabbeinu and Ivashitz. He wrote this. What age was he in? He was in the 1700s. Okay, and this was his comment on the Tower of Babel. By the way, he writes that this was the people really wanted. They wanted to establish civilization on the moon. That's what they were building, where they could be spared a future flood. They originally thought they had to get there by a vessel. But how would they lift that vessel and defy the laws of gravity? So they thought they would build a tower that would rise to space so high where gravity doesn't rule. From there, they'd be able to fly away with their vessel to the moon. But that's just a comment on the side. Let's answer the question about the Tower of Babel and about technology and the Torah's perspective. And I like this. So the Torah's view on this really is the secular study. It's like any other thing in life. It's not a question of whether something is good or bad. It's a question of how you use it, what you're doing with it. Let's take Germany, for example, right? Germany was one of the most advanced places in the world at the time. What did they do with that wisdom? They practically destroyed the world with it. Is a knife in the hands of a terrorist is not a good thing? Does that mean a knife is bad? What if a knife is there to butter your bread? Then it's a good thing. So wisdoms are the same type of a thing. It's a question of what you're doing with it and why you're doing it. So juicy steak, right? Is not a good or bad thing. If it's just mindless and you just want it, you want to glutton away, but if you use it for Shabbos, then it's a good thing. So God created a world with phenomenal features in the world, fascinating laws of nature. But he created it for a purpose. If studying the physical phenomena and the scientific data and the worldly wisdom, if we can do it for that purpose, for a godly purpose, and it's fully in line, then we should pursue it. The Tower of Babel was an exercise in science and technology. But what was the problem? Problem wasn't the scientific research that they did. Problem wasn't they now figured out how to make bricks. It was the attitude. They wanted to replace God. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to say science, bricks, and the way we make it. Instead of seeing their discoveries, like this is something bringing them closer to God, like Noah did, by the way. Noah built a boat, although God told him to build it. By the way, Noah made farming materials. That's one of the reasons he was called Noah, because he calmed the world a little bit. And he developed things, but he did it, and it deepened his connection to God. But then what did they start to feel when they saw that they could build a tower? They're going to build it, make a name. They started to feel indestructible. We have science. There's no force that could overcome us. We're going to be in the heavens. We're going to make a name. We'll endure. We're going to be higher than anything. So that's the lesson to keep it in mind. It wasn't the technology that they used. Is they used it to build themselves up and replace God. That's what they wanted to do. So people who take God's world and as an ego booster or as a way of disproving God's existence, okay, that's what we have to be afraid of, because there's people that use it in the wrong way. So the thing is as kosher as anything. But since it's used in an improper way, then it's not a good thing. Then it could be not a good thing. Now we'll understand what happens with the Zohar. The Zohar, we're over time, but I want to get to this. Let's finish this last thing. I'm sorry, usually don't go over time. So Chassidus, let's go to Chassidus. So now let's get to the question. Why was the Tower of Babel a bad thing? And the answer is not the technology or scientific research behind it, but the attitude. They thought they were so advanced that they could replace God. That's the answer why the Tower of Babel was bad. Here's what the Rebbe says, a very interesting thing. Remember he said about physics. Popular opinion used to be that all natural forces exist independently from one another. And the matter of this world is comprised of, that's what they thought, many disparate elements. But as the world makes increasingly more scientific developments, we have come to recognize that much of this disparity is really only an external facade. They really do come together, all the different elements in the world. And the various parts contract and expand into each other, ultimately minimizing the sum total. So now the question is, what is the connection between the two wisdoms? The wisdom of above and the wisdom of below. What's the connection? And the answer is, as the spiritual underpinnings of the universe were disseminated, that means Chassidus. What does Chassidus talk about at depth, at length, in comprehensive, beautiful ways about how there's one God in the world, a unified, and everything is unified. And develops that thought, Hashem Echad, there's one God, not there's only one God, not two gods. That Hashem is the existence, the constant creation of the world is God. So when this became disseminated, when this started to develop, when this started to expand, then the world became mature enough to begin a new era of wisdoms of the world, scientific advance. Then we're receptacles, we're able, because this will help us. And in addition, we use technology to spread the wisdoms of the Torah. Now, there's one more point. We use the technology. You know how it says in the Mishnah, know what is above you, there's a seeing eye, a listening ear, all your deeds are inscribed in a book. Imagine you're living 2,000 years ago. You're trying to imagine, there's a seeing eye, God sees me wherever I am. You can imagine it. But today, what was your connection if you lived in Mesopotamia and somebody in Southeast Asia? You couldn't imagine it. Now you can see everywhere in the world and you can connect. So it's a lot easier to imagine there's a God who sees everything. It just made it easier for us to understand that. That's using the technology for that purpose. So science is a powerful tool, God-given. When used properly, can promote godliness in very significant, great ways to a degree which we cannot achieve without it. So these are the tools that we can use to bring the world closer to Mashiach. We have a Zoom class on technology. we're speaking Chassidus, and we're speaking Torah, and we're speaking about the Parsha, and there's development of mitzvahs all over the world in a much greater and deeper way because of the technology, so the two wisdoms come together, and we need to use them. Just because not everybody uses it that way doesn't mean anything. Just because people misuse items, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that's the right thing to do. There's always free choice. But we have to know what the free choice, it's like the Zohar said 2,000 years ago. The wisdoms of the world and the wisdoms are for the purpose of making the world a better place and getting the world ready for Mashiach. That's why there's so much technology. The Talmud says, I'll finish with this. The Talmud says that gold is in the world. Gold is very valuable. Why did God create gold? For the Beis Hamikdash, for the temple in Jerusalem. You had to make the ark out of gold. You had to make the showbread table out of gold. You had to make different parts out of gold. But the whole world has gold. So the whole world has gold, but the purpose was really for the Beis Hamikdash. The same thing is the whole world has new innovations and new wisdoms. And we have to realize we should be on top of the wisdoms. The wisdoms are a tool, not that the wisdoms are taking us over. That's what we get lost. So that's the message of this parsha. Now Noach used that, as you said, he used it, but they didn't. The Tower of Babel didn't. They used it to be indestructible, to make themselves stronger, to replace God, to make a name for themselves. And that was the idea that they did. Okay, that's what we have for tonight. A lot of information. We learned something. Any other comments on this?
Rabbi, did the Rebbe study physics with the intention of becoming a physicist, or did he study physics to better understand Torah?
It was clear that he studied physics to better understand Torah. Very clear. There's a biography they made of the Rebbe that they researched, and it was quite clear. In fact, his father-in-law, who was the previous Rebbe, wanted him to do that as well. Also, his main reason was because he knew that the Rebbe would be in a position to deal with people in the world to bring them closer to Torah, and this would be part of making that happen. That's one of the reasons he did that. But he also actually practically used it. During the World War II, he went in the U.S. Navy, the naval in Brooklyn, the U.S. Navy. There was engineering that they used his talents for during that time as well. Very practical. But he was able to relate to the world of people in universities and in academia, just as a result of because of what he did. And they said that's yeah. Yes, Hadassah. Guys, we're way over time. I'm sorry. Usually don't do it, but go ahead, Hadassah.
Oh yeah.
Interesting discussion.
Yeah, no, it's probably too much, but I just have
No, for you, no, I meant that as for myself. You go ahead. Yeah.
Right. No, it's too much to go into, but I have an interesting letter of the Rebbe where, he responds to a professor about, first the question, should he travel overseas and all, and then he really goes into detail about a scientific study that the professor, I guess, has published, and he read it, and he has all these questions related to, immunity, not immunity,
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the Tanya to relate it how to study these kind of germs and bacteria while using principles of the Tanya. So it's amazing. It's going
amazing.
So,
Amazing.
If you're interested, I can show you.
I'm very interested. Is that Velvel Green?
It's say again?
Velvel Green, Professor Velvel Green?
Oh, it doesn't say the name. It's
Okay.
just Professor ...
Okay.
So just publishes
Yes.
the letter. So I don't know.
You can post it if you'd like.
But it's
Very.
a very interesting letter. So
I would like to see it.
yeah, I can send you the link. Okay.
Sure.
Sorry.
You can post it if you'd like. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, good night, everybody.
And thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi
Hi,
Yashikov.
Rabbi. Thank you.
Rabbi, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Sure.
Good night.
Good night.